Dear netizens, this video originates from a piece of news. The essence of the news isn't very important, but it has historical significance. Trump significantly stopped America's foreign broadcasts. This has a long historical background. I have been listening to Voice of America since I was young. Now they have stopped. Then there's Radio Free Asia. I have been to Radio Free Asia's online platform. I have been there once or twice. Susie and General Chow are both from Radio Free Asia. On the night of March 14th, Trump signed an executive order to cut funding for the federally funded news organization Voice of America, operating funds, saying that this organization is anti-Trump and radical, meaning it is left-wing. This executive order requires, within the maximum extent permitted by applicable law, and of U.S. Agency for Global Media and 6 other unrelated agencies. U.S. Agency for Global Media. You know the United States does not allow propaganda. The government is not allowed to conduct propaganda in country. That's not allowed to do any broadcasting domestically. Cannot touch any media. These media only broadcast outside the United States and reduce operations to the minimum level required by law. 1 or 2 people remain. These are legislated. Legislation does not specify. It doesn't mandate how often it's aired, so they air it. Minimum requirement. All the excess has been removed. Alright, Trump made U.S. Agency for Global Media as a part of the federal bureaucracy that the president deemed unnecessary to ensure taxpayers are no longer suspicious of radical propaganda. He said they were promoting leftist ideologies. First of all, discuss their mission later. They'll promote American values, representing American society. Over the past 10 to 20 years or so, all media across the United States have been discussing gender equality. So they talked about it, which is why Trump was very displeased. In addition to the U.S. Agency for Global Media, he also cut the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service used for arbitration, the International Scholar Center, Museum and Library Association, and 7 other institutions. These should cost little money. Voice of America has over 1,300 full-time employees, suspended on March 15th, including journalists, production crew. They provide services in 50 languages. Now Voice of America is paralyzed. It's like they died immediately. Voice of America's director, Alamo Horowitz. I am very saddened. Voice of America. 83 people, for the first time in recent years, unable to speak out. Unable to speak out. Feeling very miserable. All right. All freelancers, contract workers, that is, those you sent to down in signed contracts, telling you no money left, unable to pay salaries. This is truly very irresponsible. If contract is signed, shouldn't U.S. Gov meet these contractual obligations? You can't seize an organization. There are contracts, and government must fulfill these obligations, returning equipment from the journalist's office. The company comes to a halt, and Donald Trump also terminated federal funding for Radio Free Asia and Radio Free Europe. These media outlets cover a total of 427 million people, and his executive order, because that executive order targets Voice of America and Radio Free Asia, Radio Free Europe is all under an organization called the United States Agency for Global Media. Let me show you. That agency works with Voice of America, funds Radio Free Europe and Radio Free Asia. Because when they run it themselves, it saves a bit of money. During his first term, Donald Trump strongly criticized Voice of America and wanted to cut the budget. But because of Congress's checks and balances, they couldn't cut it. At that time, it was the Republican Party, and many people felt these needed to be maintained. Some employees said since Donald Trump returned to the White House, had a bad feeling and sought new jobs. But this time, there's no one to check Donald Trump. What did Elon Musk say? On February 9th of this year, he said through the X platform that he wanted to shut it down. He said that Europe is now free, the Cold War is over, and Europe no longer needs external broadcasts to obtain free information. They have free information, but he didn't account for Belarus and Russia. No one listens to these media, thinking nobody listens. Fewer people listen to, especially radio, now that the internet is available. These media are filled with radical left-wing fanatics, talking about their own issues every year, spending $1 billion. This is what he advocated, and he also announced that the funding for these media, including RFA, would be frozen for 30 days. Previously, RFA told him freezing funds leaves us broke. The director of Radio Free Asia, Fang Bei, received a notification from the Global Media Agency on March 15. The funding was officially stopped. I don't know why these things have contracts, and they can just stop whenever they like. I don't know if they have to give a reason to stop. And funding for RFA, they most hope to seek to dominate the information field in their respective domains. Let me say this first, they provide alternative information. In the past, people in mainland China would secretly listen to Voice of America at night because they couldn't hear anything other than state media. Now they can bypass the firewall. With the firewall, some places have no access to information. It provides alternative news. RFA plays a crucial role in assisting U.S. policymakers to understand the real situation in China and other closed countries because they have investigative journalists. They can uncover some real situations and expose them to the world. RFA's groundbreaking reports on the Xinjiang issue. They discovered that no matter how many people were detained in Xinjiang or how much forced labor there was, it compelled the Trump administration to declare that the Chinese government committed genocide. This was because of RFA's reporting. Today's decision not only deprives 60 million people who listen every week, but also sacrifices American interests, allowing our adversaries to benefit. The previous administration stated that this was a significant cognitive warfare launched by China and Russia against the United States. They used AI to generate many fake accounts to create internal divisions within the United States, and it abolished a weapon that had been used for over 80 years. A weapon used to counterattack. Originally, it was said that more money would be spent, but instead, even the only existing propaganda channels were abolished. Similarly affected were Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty executives. This decision is a big boost for America's enemies, including the mullahs of Iran, the rulers of the Chinese Communist Party, and the dictators of Moscow and Minsk. They are delighted and celebrating, having fought for this for a long time. Back then, anyone caught with a shortwave radio could be sent to labor camps because they were accused of eavesdropping on the Voice of America. Reporters Without Borders said this decision threatens global press freedom and erases America's 80-year history of supporting free flow of information. International human rights organization Human Rights Watch mentioned in Xinjiang and Tibet, RFA Radio Free Asia is a media outlet that can provide information. People can listen to these stations because they cannot be completely banned, allowing them to hear and gain information beyond what the Communist Party provides. The disappearance of RFA represents the area as an information black hole, what the Chinese Communist Party desires. So, what did Hu Xijin say? The crippling of Voice of America, part of the U.S. Agency for Global Media, is upsetting. Voice of America, you have your day too. Voice of America is crippled, and so is the equally malicious Radio Free Asia towards China. It's disheartening. He traces the influence of Voice of America, recalling how, during his student days, Voice of America had a detrimental impact on Chinese university students, misleading everyone's understanding of the current situation. Many of the early pro-democracy activists, when they were young, in the 50s and 60s, they all listened to Voice of America. As long as there was a radio, the mainland couldn't completely block it. They listened secretly. It was a key source of knowledge. Voice of America is part of the U.S. Agency for Global Media. It is the largest news agency in the U.S., reporting news in 45 languages. The U.S. Voice of America provides comprehensive news coverage targeting places without press freedom or where some people are significantly restricted. From World War II and the Cold War to today, it claims to be a model of the principles of media freedom, a demonstration of public and impartial media, according to the Voice of America's charter. Starting in 1942, in 1976, Ford signed it into law to protect its editorial and production independence and integrity with legal protection against political interference, prohibiting any U.S. government official from interfering with its news reporting. They maintain journalistic independence, similar to the BBC. Voice of America has 3 principles that must be followed. A reliable news source, reports must be verified. Only true news can be published. It represents the entire United States, not a single social class, not representing the Liberal Party or the Democratic Party, but the voice of the entire United States. This is the voice of the entire United States, uniting left and right. Additionally, they must introduce U.S. national policies and foreign policies. These are the 3 points. The news must be reliable, nonpartisan, and it should introduce any new policies of the U.S. government. Voice of America reported the most significant news of the 1960s and 70s, and at that time, China relied on this to know what was happening. Civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s 1963 "I Have a Dream" speech. Tonight, Martin, the new king of fish cuisine, 1969 Armstrong moon landing. These historical events aired live by Radio Free Asia. Stimulated by the events following the 1989 pro-democracy movement, the organization was formed in 1994 to promote democratic values and human rights. Radio Free Asia operates in Asia, Europe, and Australia. On its official website and social media, It uses 10 languages, targeting audiences in China, Hong Kong, North Korea, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Myanmar. Some of these places really need it. In many parts of China, people can bypass internet restrictions, but not in Xinjiang and Tibet. North Korea and Laos and Cambodia also can't. Vietnam doesn't need it as they have free media, and Myanmar is similar. Radio Free Asia is funded by congressional legislation but maintains editorial independence. It began broadcasting in Mandarin in 1996 and later added Cantonese, Uyghur, and Tibetan. It mainly focuses on Xinjiang and Tibet. The Uyghur Department of Radio Free Asia was the first to expose the Chinese government's large-scale detentions in 2017. People were being taken into concentration camps, which most of the world was unaware of. Those re-education camps, reported in Uyghur, led to major coverage that won the Burke Outstanding Journalism Award in 2019, earning a major journalism prize. These reports prompted the Donald Trump administration to officially declare that the Chinese government committed genocide. I don't know. Those Chinese influencers who support Donald Trump, what do they have to say about abolishing this? It's very clear if they believe Donald Trump's policy is a strategic move against China, then why abolish Radio Free Asia's broadcasts to China? Radio Free Asia uses radio, television, social media, and the internet to reach those whose freedom and press freedom are restricted by China. China's oppressed and often serves as the only uncensored news source in these areas. Certainly, in places like North Korea, Cambodia, Myanmar, Xinjiang, and among the Uyghurs, due to its coverage of North Korea, Tibet, and Xinjiang, its English-translated reports have become a source for the world to get info on these regions, as they have reporters who gather this information and then translate it into English to report on local news. Many people researching these issues rely on Voice of America. They are the source. Speaking of history, actually, Donald Trump appointed his own people, and in 2020, he nominated Michael Peck to be in charge. After taking office, he had fired the American staff. The top executives of Voice of America and Radio Free Asia, and exerted influence over editorial decisions. Under Peck's leadership, he conducted reviews of VOA and RFA. He claimed that those media outlets did not support the U.S. government's stance. However, Donald Trump himself did not specifically criticize RFA. He had already used people to control it. 4 years ago, in 2020, during Donald Trump's previous term, he harshly criticized Voice of America, saying it reported by citing China's official COVID-19 statistics based on China's situation, and released videos of Wuhan's reopening celebrations as Beijing's propaganda support foreign adversaries. In 2020, Donald Trump criticized Voice of America, calling it ineffective, saying Americans, the American people, need better info. It is not aired in U.S. How much money was actually spent? According to USAM, the president's budget for the fiscal year 2025 in 2024 requested on March 11, 2024. This is Biden requesting the allocation for the National Media Office. $950 million, an increase of 7.4%. Mainly it's for Voice of America, the Office of Cuba Broadcasting, and then there's Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, Radio Free Asia, the Middle East Broadcasting Networks, and the Open Technology Fund, which are the two major branches under it. I think it's a pity, but I want to ask, do you think Donald Trump's purpose is to counter China? How can he conduct cognitive warfare against China? China is constantly launching its cognitive warfare against you. So are Donald Trump's actions part of a bigger strategy? I want to ask everyone,